Hey, WellFit fam, welcome to the WellFit Lab podcast, which is a weekly conversation with burnout coach Shia Thousand. Hello, about all things mental health and personal wellness to prevent stress and overcome burnout to live life with intention. Grab your pen and paper and join me in the lab for today's episode. Hey, good people. What's going on? Welcome to the WellFit Lab podcast. I am your host, Shia Thousand, our resident burnout coach, and I'm so excited to be bringing you episode 4. Can you believe it? Episode 4. It's our first week, and we dropped 4 dope episodes for you. Hopefully, you were able to catch last episode, episode 2 and 3, which were featuring our guests, Paul Brunson, a serial entrepreneur, UK TV show host of the greatest show that we all love here in America, which is Married at First Sight, and he's hosting a UK version. So we had a great conversation with him about value alignment as well as family wellness. What does that look like as a married Black man working overseas with a family? And how do you make it work and still be successful? So that was a really great conversation. And if you don't know what you're listening to today, you are listening to the WellFit Lab podcast, which is a weekly conversation with, guess who? Your host, Shia Thousand, about all things mental health and personal wellness to prevent stress and overcome burnout to live life with intention. Awesome to have you. Thank you so much for coming. So this is our 4th episode, and I thought we'd talk about a case of the Mondays, right? Like it's Monday, you're 4 episodes in. Hopefully you've enjoyed all of the episodes. And with some people's offices opening back up and some people still working remotely, people still can't stand Monday. I had a coworker tell me last week that they prefer bad news on Mondays, and they actually deliver bad news on Mondays. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, I don't deliver bad news on Fridays, so I like to let people enjoy their weekend. So if we have any bad news to deliver, we deliver it on Monday. And people just don't like Mondays. And honestly, I don't think our computer systems like Monday either. Do you ever notice that like your computer just does not do what it's supposed to do on Mondays? Like there's always an update or something going on, and you're like, what is going on? And you're like, oh, it's Monday. It's a case of the Mondays. So if you are one of those people and Monday itself just brings about anxiety or fear, as well as with us re-entering society, you are in the right place. We are going to be talking about those things on the WellFit Lab today. So welcome to the lab. Grab your pen and your paper, and let's see where the conversation takes us. So I love talking about mindset on Mondays. I love the hashtag. If you look up Mindset Mondays, usually some really great stuff comes up. But it's really just interesting how our mindset kind of sets a tone for everything that we do. So mindset is everything. And once you can accept the notion of re-entering society, I think we'll have an easier time managing what comes along with it. And the ability to embrace change is part of shifting your mindset. So I'm not a person that really likes a lot of change. Like I need to be mentally prepared for things. And it's funny because years ago, my friends used to laugh at me or they just thought I was strange, mainly because if they were bringing an extra person to dinner, like I needed a heads up. Like mentally, I'm preparing to go to dinner with one person and one person I can have my guard down with. I'm not always mentally prepared to go to dinner with 10 people. So I've gotten much better, but I think that was something that in my early 20s, it used to make all my friends kind of annoyed because if we say we're going to dinner, I think we're going to dinner, not you and 10 other people. And I can't be my unguarded self with 10 other people I don't know. So I just like a little heads up on that. And I think it works the same way in the workplace. So workplace stress is at an all-time high. Like who out there is just over Zoom meetings and you're like Zoom exhausted, virtual meeting exhausted, everything just exhausted. Like that's the thin line when it comes to your level of exhaustion, what you're pouring back into yourself with self-care, and on the verge of burnout. And burnout is no bueno. Like, we do not want to get to a place of burnout. So we have to make sure we keep our cup full and making sure that in doing so, we're taking time for ourselves. This means rest. Like, we need to be getting adequate rest. I think it's really interesting that a lot of our workplace stress is undiagnosed, as well as relating to not getting enough stress. We all think working from home was a great idea at first, and then we realized that the boundaries got very blurred or they didn't exist anymore. So in a future episode, we're actually going to have a therapist on talking about this. But I just wanted to kind of touch on it right now as a mindset and what we can do to help reframe the conversation in your mind about your workplace and making sure that you are not in a toxic workplace and that you are setting boundaries even within your home. So something I did within my home that I think has been really, really helpful is I actually turned one of my bedrooms into an office. And I know that this is a luxury. Everyone cannot do this. So I will say that if you cannot do this and you turn a corner of your dining room or your living room into an office, that you create a boundary where 5 o'clock you shut down. So 5 o'clock, my dog normally is like sitting and looking at me and he's ready to go. He needs to go for a walk. And that's my cue to like kind of sign off work. And I don't really need cues that much because I'm super like on it when it comes to my work boundary and just like shutting it down normally. But there are times where you have deadlines, you have things coming up where it's not that easy. So I want to encourage you guys as you're listening to this and thinking about the spaces in your home where you're working to just create a space. So be it another bedroom, you make it an office, or a corner of the house that you don't go to after 5 o'clock. On the weekends, you don't go into that area. Create that boundary now mentally around your mindset. Create that boundary and have a mindset that your work is Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And everyone doesn't have that luxury. But if you do, I encourage you to maintain it. One, it's just good for your mental health. You need to kind of disconnect and log off. And with us all working and living in the same space, things look really different right now. So make sure that you're creating and cultivating a space where you can do that. And also reframing the mental conversation around your job and how you experience it is game changing, aka life changing. We go through life receiving and evaluating information daily. We are inundated with information all day, every day. That information is being seen through the lens of our experiences. So if we grew up experience a lot of negativity, then your lens is going to be negative. When we conquer our mindsets and our life, we will be able to look at the things and thoughts that we have and the information we feed ourselves from a discerning perspective. So really think about that. We first have to make a choice to do so and then work at it daily through unlearning that which does not contribute to the best version of ourselves. And that's what living with intention is about, is being mindful of how you start, you go through, and you end your days. But then also being mindful of the thoughts you give attention to, the people you give attention to, and the things that you give your attention to. We all speak about energy all the time, and energy is really like your spirit. Like, what are you feeding your spirit? Like, you know what you feed your body, and it works the same way with your spirit. If you feed your spirit poor things, then you will have a poor spirit. But if you feed your spirit things that are rich and edifying, then you will have a rich spirit. So just think about that for a little bit. So I want you to be mindful of conquering your mindset and paying attention to the things that you put into yourself, as well as thinking about what is the lens you see the world through. How do you react to workplace stress? How should you respond? And when I say how should you respond, it's not one of those things where you're like, oh, well, I should have done this. If you're a person that tends to overreact, be mindful and maybe take a beat, right? And just think about like, you know what? Maybe this wasn't personal. A lot of the time we take things personal that are not necessarily personal, especially in spaces where it's business, right? So you got to learn how to separate and kind of compartmentalize that. I will say there's a caveat to that. If you recognize a microaggression, That's not the same. So when we get our therapist on, we're going to break that down as well. But I just want you to think about that. I want you to also meditate on this. This is a scripture from Romans 12:2. And it said, "Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that is good, acceptable, and perfect will of God." And so you want to be transformed by your mind. You don't want culture to be the only thing that you're feeding off of, feeding your spirit, and then you lead with a lens of culture and negativity, because cancel culture is real, microaggressions are real, and if those are the things you're focusing on, that's going to be what your mind kind of tends to, versus being mindful of the things that you give your time and attention to, and feeding your spirit the things that are good. So God speaks to mindset in his word and knows our minds will be challenged in how we view the world. Trust you are not alone, and we all need support on this journey to conquer our minds. Instead of saying, "I don't want to go to work tomorrow," say, "I am blessed with a job that affords me the option of using my skills to create the life I want." Being mindful that your job is a blessing. There are people out here who don't have jobs right now, and they really wish they did. So how do we just kind of reframe the conversation? And it's easy to complain about things unless it's something that's toxic or is really just taking away from your life, right? Like it's draining you completely. Be mindful of how you speak. Your words have creative power. And when we speak negatively about our jobs and things like that, your job could easily be taken away from you. So we need to recognize the blessings and the resources given to us at any given point in time in our life, no matter what it pertains to, but especially around every day going to work in our jobs, because there are people who would literally give almost anything to be in some of the positions that we're in. And there was a time you prayed for the things you now have, and we now complain about. We sometimes complain about our families, but we once prayed for our families. We complain about our jobs. We once prayed for that job. So not saying that you're just don't complain, because a lot of the time that's hard. I get it. However, just be mindful of the words we use. Let's make sure that we're blessing those around us. We're not cursing them. And that when we're complaining about the things that we have that we once prayed for, we're also giving thanks for the good things, a part of those things that sometimes frustrate us. Because it's not in its totality frustrating all the time. It's those moments. And I get it. I totally have those moments. If you know me, you know I have those moments a lot. However, I want to encourage you to de-stress and shift the mental conversation. I want you to think about it right now. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Stretch. Maybe go for a walk. Go for a run. If it's in the middle of the day and you're listening to this and you have your lunch break coming up, go outside. Go for a walk in nature. This is why we drop this podcast every Monday at 12 p.m. I want you guys to have something in the middle of the day that you can connect with that speaks to your mental health well-being, helping you prevent stress and overcome burnout to live life with intention. And if you set the tone for your week with something like that, that can be game-changing. So I want to give you 5 ways to de-stress. So if it's lunchtime right now, take a 20-minute walk in nature. Even if it's raining outside, don't get mad about the rain. The rain is here to help the flowers grow, clean the air of the pollen, create a reserve for those in need, as well as clean off the streets. And it cleans out the air in such an amazing way. Take your umbrella and just go for a walk outside. I don't care if it's raining. It doesn't matter. Rain or shine. Go for at least a 20-minute walk in nature. And if you live in a major city, don't get mad that there are people outside. Don't get mad about the fact that it's just so much traffic. Look up to the sky, look around, find something you've never seen before that you could be grateful for. Your legs are working, your limbs are working. You have a job. At some point in time, you love that job. If you no longer love that job, I would pray about that as well. But just think about it that way. Could it always be worse, because that's just never good. But I think it's important to bring a perspective to things. A lot of things that we deal with at work are usually temporary. They're frustrating, but they're just temporary. And at some point in time, we really loved our jobs. So I want you to get back into the mental state of when you really loved your job or even really liked your job. Just think about that. I also want you to practice deep breathing for 1 minute. 1 minute, take deep diaphragm breaths. Practice that. Next, listen to a positive or encouraging podcast. Hello, you're listening to the WellFit Lab right now. Yay, so you're already doing that one. And if you have a space or if you have a door to your office, I want to encourage you to meditate for 10-minute intervals. So just sit down, close your eyes, think about the scripture I shared and how you can walk that out in your day today. Think about something that is loving. Think about something that is kind. Think about something that is positive. Think about something you are grateful for. Think about something that brings you joy. That's what I want you to meditate on for 10 minutes. And last but not least, out of the 5 ways to de-stress, journal your feelings for the day. Are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling stressed? Are you feeling frustrated, annoyed, or anxious? And you really just don't know how to put words to it sometimes? I would say journal it. I also even say create a voice note for it and really just listen back and maybe hear, okay, maybe this is what was going on at this point in time where I felt this way. But when you write it down, this is why I encourage journaling. You kind of let it go at that point. You release it, but it also helps you go back and look at it and say, okay, that day, this is what was going on. I was being pulled in 10 different directions. The demand on me was really high. I was overwhelmed. You can think back and you'll be able to see like, you know what? That was a moment. That's not the end all be all, but it was a moment and I had a moment and now I'm through the moment. But I want to encourage you to spend some time de-stressing today and focusing on your mindset, being mindful of what you give your mental space to. Be mindful of what you focus on and just pray for discernment that you recognize when things are temporary and how they're going to show up and how they trigger you so that you can write that down in your journal as well. I want to encourage you as well because make a note. If your workplace is toxic and you are experiencing panic attacks or high levels of anxiety throughout the workday, please seek professional help. I want to encourage that because a lot of the times we think what we're going through is normal. A lot of the times we don't realize we're working in toxic environments. And this conversation today does not take the place of actual therapy to heal or discuss your experiences. So I really want you, if you need more help than journaling, walking in nature, listening to a podcast, or deep breathing for a minute, I want to encourage you. Seek help. There is a great website if you're an African-American woman or man and you're looking for therapy resources. Therapy for Black Girls is a wonderful page to follow on Instagram. And they have a directory. And that's why I say man or woman, because there's a directory on there where you can actually find a therapist. I also am a big component or advocate for telehealth. So if you're not somebody who's comfortable going into the office as the world reopens for therapy, I encourage you to use the amazing apps that are available in your app store for therapy. I personally use Talkspace, and I'm a huge advocate for it, and I find it very helpful. There are different plan levels, different subscriptions, but I encourage it. If you need to seek more than what journaling can do, more than what talking to a friend can do, just be clear, your friends are not your therapist. Like, they're there and they support you and they love you, but everyone plays a different role in your life. So please do not give the role of therapist to your friends. They're there to help you and support you. However, they are not your therapist. And I would like to encourage, before you go into a whole dumping session with your friend the next time you speak to them, you ask, how are you? And do you have capacity? I really need to share or get some things off my chest right now. And that is beyond like appreciated in the friend space. I'm just going to encourage you. As a strong friend to many, I love when people just, one, ask me how I'm doing. Two, ask me if I have capacity, because sometimes people just call and dump on you, and that's transference. And you may not have the capacity for that right then and there, and there was no warning sign. So I think it's really important to be mindful of that when we speak to our friends and we just want to dump. Ask if they have capacity. Ask if how they're doing, what's going on in their life. So often we just kind of just skip by that, and everyone's so busy leading their lives. We're missing real connections with people right now. And I really want to encourage us to get back into the habit of making real connections with our friends and not be like a drive-by friend. How you doing? Okay. Not waiting for an answer. Like, wait for the answer. It's important. That person needs to be heard just as much as you need to be heard. And there's nothing more than feeling heard in a relationship. That's one of the best feelings. And that be romantic, in the office, in your friendships. Everyone just wants to be heard and seen for who they really are. So take a moment, skip a beat, ask your friend how they're doing, and then ask them if they have capacity. And again, if you are someone who is working in a toxic work environment, if you are someone who is experiencing panic attacks or anything of the sort, I encourage you to seek professional help. Asking for help does not make you weak. Asking for help is actually a strength. And it's something that just pays for itself so many times over, because the healing that we get from getting the help we need in any one given situation is just amazing. And it's something that can help you help others. But keeping your cup full allows you to give from a place of overflow and not depletion. Never forget that. All right? So that's today's episode. Just so you know, these episodes are always going to be between like 30 and 40 minutes, sometimes 20, 25, but it depends on what the topic is for the day. I hope you're enjoying it. I really hope you subscribe. Leave a rating, leave a review. Let me hear your thoughts. And follow me on social media. Again, this is Burnout Coach Shy 1000, your resident burnout coach here at the WellFit Lab. Thanks for joining me in the lab. Thank you for listening to today's episode, and hopefully you've enjoyed it. Follow me on social media. I am Shy 1000 on every platform. So CHEYATHOUSAND. And thank you for being a part of today's episode. Talk to you soon. Be well.